There are lots of cookie decorating kits out on the market around Christmas and around lots of holidays, but that might not be in the budget for you, so we're going to show you how to make your own sugar cookies. The ingredients for a 6 dozen batch are 4 sticks of softened butter, 2 cups of sugar, 2 eggs, about a tablespoon of vanilla, 1.5 teaspoons of baking powder, a 1/4 teaspoon of salt, and 6 cups of flour, and then you might need about 2 to 3 tablespoons of water just to make sure that the dough is the right consistency. But you want to make sure your butter is unsalted, and if it's not unsalted, you're going to leave out the salt. So the first thing you're going to do is put your butter into the mixer. If you do not have a stand mixer, then you can use a hand mixer and it'll work just fine. You just might need to scrape down your bowl a little bit more. If you have a stand mixer, those scraper beaters work absolutely wonderful. Then you're going to add your sugar and mix that until it's combined. In a lot of cases with creaming, you're waiting for it to get fluffy, but I found with this recipe, it does not need to get fluffy, and actually it's a little bit easier to work with if you just mix it until it's just combined. Then you're going to add your eggs one at a time, waiting until the first one incorporates before adding the second. And I do crack those into a bowl just to make sure that no eggs go into the mixer because they are impossible to find. Or none of the eggshells, I mean. Then you're going to add your vanilla, your baking powder, and your salt. And if you are the type of person that forgets ingredients, it's a really good idea to go ahead and measure everything into little containers just so that you don't forget to add things and you know what you've left out. After you've added those ingredients, you're going to scrape down and mix a little bit more. A lot of times people put the dry ingredients in the baking powder and salt with the flour, but I found it works a little bit easier to put them in at this stage. And then you're going to turn your mixer to your lowest speed so that the flour doesn't floof everywhere and slowly add that in. And these wide bowls work really well for this process. You can also use a piece of parchment and just kind of use it as a funnel. And if there's powdery flour still in the bottom after this stage, you're going to add 1 to 2 tablespoons of water just to make sure all that flour takes up. And then you want to mix this as little as possible because this does have gluten in it, and the more you mix it, the tougher it gets. So just kind of scrape that off, and we're going to call off mixing this as soon as possible just so we don't have tough cookies. This is a quick reminder to hit that subscribe button. We are trying to grow this channel as quickly as possible, so go ahead and subscribe. So then we are going to put a coating of flour on the counter. A lot of your sugar cookie recipes call for chilling, but I have actually found that, especially because I have some arthritis in my hands, that it's easier to go ahead and roll this immediately. But you do need to use a good bit of flour so that it doesn't stick. But we are putting icing on these in the end. This is a less sweet recipe, so it's just fine. If you have a small counter space or a small rolling pin, split this recipe in 2 to roll it out. But the rolling pin that I have is 2 feet wide and has little spacers on it, so it works okay. So you're going to shape it into an even disc and then sprinkle a little more flour on top. And this is my big old rolling pin. And you're going to roll it out as long as your rolling pin is wide. And you're going to turn it 90 degrees. And this is important because at this stage we're making sure it's not sticking to the board. And I'm going to add a little bit more flour at the top to make sure that top section doesn't stick. And sometimes if it's sticking a little bit, I'll lift it up and make sure that there's some flour underneath it. And we are rolling these out to about 1/4 inch. My rolling pin actually stops it at this stage. So a rolling pin with stops or those silicone guides will stop you from rolling it thick, but you don't have to have those. You can feel it out. But if this is something you do a lot, that might be something worth investing in. So I lay my cookie cutters out in the order that I want to cut them out in so that I can plan out and make sure that don't end up with 20 snowmen and 1 Christmas tree. And you will see me realize later in this video that I have 2 candy canes and replace one of the candy canes with an ornament. You're going to press that cookie cutter straight down And then you can jiggle a little bit, but avoid jiggling as much as you can, and then lift it up. A lot of times it will bring the dough with it, and you want to handle these gently to avoid misshaping them, and then place them on a parchment lined cookie sheet. And these are not going to spread a whole lot. If the cookie cutter is more complicated, you might want to move it directly on the pan. So set the cookie cutter on the pan and just kind of press it out onto the parchment on the pan so that it doesn't misshape and it's in the original shape. If the cookies stick a little bit too much to the cookie cutter, you can dip it in flour. Dip the cookie cutter in flour to keep that sticking from happening. And if it is sticking a whole lot, I've even sprayed it with cooking spray. These can be laid out pretty close together because they don't spread very much. And you're just going to continue cutting and laying your cookies out. If you have a cutter that has one section that's continually getting stuck, a chopstick or a straw, especially a straw that has like little silicone tips on it, will work well for gently popping that out of there. That way you're able to get all the different parts out of the cookie cutters. Once you cut out all you can from that rolling, you're going to press all the scraps together. You can see me gathering those up. And reflour your board. And lay the dough on it. And this will not take as much flour as the original one because we've worked to get a bit of flour into the dough. And you're going to roll it out as before and cut out your second round. And press together the scraps the final time and roll that out and cut. I do not roll the scraps more than 2 times, so 3 times total, because that will make the cookies a little bit tough and dry, because the more you work the dough, the tougher it gets. So I would not go any more than 2 re-rolls. And you will notice that I always end up with a little bit of flour on my shirt. I should wear an apron, I just never do. But this batch makes about 6 dozen cookies. You want to bake these at 350 for 9 to 11 minutes. They're going to be barely brown on the edges because you don't want a whole lot of color on these. And if you have a convection oven, that's going to work best. I intentionally bought an oven that holds 6 racks at once. It's okay to just bake one batch at a time if you do not have convection. These are not very sweet, so decorate these with royal icing. We will have that video out next week. You can also purchase royal icing, but it's very easy to make, and we will show you guys how to do that next week. This is what your final product looks like. They are super cute. They are very buttery, and some people like these just on their own because they don't have that sickly sweet flavor that a lot of cookies have. And they are super fun to decorate. And we will also be linking our decorating video that we put out last year right here. This is what they look like decorated, and we're going to show you some tips for how to make sure your final product looks super smooth. But obviously the most important thing is to have fun with your family, and if kids are decorating them, they are going to look like a sprinkle extravaganza, and that's exactly what you want out of this. This is just a reminder that we have our 2 membership levels, our 20 quart and our 5 quart level, and that is a way to support our channel to help us grow. We would love to have you. We're going to have some live streams and things to help grow our channel going forward. And thank you so much for joining us. If you are not able to join as a member, we would love to have you as a subscriber. We would love to have you as an engaged member of our community. So don't forget to like this video, comment, let us know if you are going to be trying this recipe with your family, and hit that subscribe button. We will see you next week with our royal icing recipe.